As the king and queen leave the thrones and head for the exit of West End, Rabbi on the coronation Saturday, you'll see that everyone bows and curses to the king, and no one moves a limb or muscle when the cab passes. Kate Middleton ascending the throne is definitely the most shocking decision ever made by the royals. Kate, who is always loved by people, is now the Princess of Wales. But why does Camilla never choose to be the Princess of Wales? The major shifts in titles, including Kate Middleton's ascension to the throne, are sending shock waves through the entire nation. Join us as we are going to disclose why Camilla lost her title to Kate Middleton. The internet erupts in a storm as news breaks that Queen Camilla has stepped aside, passing the title of Queen to Kate Middleton. Queen Camilla will be crowned. May thy servant Camilla, who wears this crown, be filled by thine abundant grace. Across social media, fans celebrate this historic royal shift, calling it the best news the monarchy has seen in years. Kate, always beloved by the people, now holds the most prestigious title. Her elegance, grace, and unwavering commitment to duty have made her the perfect symbol of modern royalty. The royal family is undergoing a massive transformation, and Kate is at its center. 4 years, she has been preparing for this moment. Young, ambitious, and determined to redefine the monarchy. People trust her, admire her, and believe she is the one who can bring stability and renewal to the royal institution. Kate already holds the title of Princess of Wales, one of the most cherished and historically significant titles in British royalty. The last woman to bear this title was Princess Diana, a name that still carries immense love and admiration worldwide. Diana was more than just a princess, she was the people's princess. She transformed what it meant to be royal, breaking barriers and connecting with ordinary people in ways no one had before. From the moment Diana became Princess of Wales after marrying Prince Charles, she was just 20 years old when she married him. She captured the world's heart. Unlike other royals, Diana wasn't distant. She was warm, approachable, and deeply compassionate. The public saw in her something real, someone who cared genuinely, not just out of duty. One of her most iconic moments came when she shook hands with an HIV patient without gloves. At the time, the world still feared the disease, and people treated HIV patients like outcasts. But Diana challenged the stigma, proving that compassion was stronger than fear. That one act changed how people viewed the illness and the individuals suffering from it. She didn't just show kindness, she used her influence to bring awareness and break down barriers. Another unforgettable moment was when she visited a landmine field in Angola, wearing protective gear and walking through an active minefield to support a campaign against landmines. The world watched in awe. A royal, a princess, risking her safety for a humanitarian cause was unheard of, but Diana was fearless when it came to fighting for what she believed in. That image of her in a bomb disposal vest became a defining symbol of her legacy. Diana's devotion to her causes extended beyond grand gestures. She spent time with the homeless, the sick, and those who had been forgotten by society. She sat on the floor with children, comforted grieving families, and gave people a sense of hope. She was not just a princess, she was a force of kindness, a light in the royal family. Even after her divorce from Charles, in 1992, she remained the Princess of Wales, a title she carried with dignity until her tragic passing in 1997. The world mourned her loss as if they had lost a family member. Diana wasn't just a royal figure, she was a global icon, a woman who had changed the way people viewed royalty forever. When Kate married Prince William, the question arose, would she take the title of Princess of Wales? Many believed that no one could ever replace Diana, and out of respect, the title remained unused for years. But when it was finally given to Kate, it was seen as a passing of the torch, a new chapter for the monarchy. People saw Diana's spirit in Kate, not in comparison, but in the way she carried herself with grace, humility, and an undeniable connection to the people. While Diana's time as Princess of Wales was filled with admiration, Camilla's journey in the royal family was far more controversial. She was never given the title of Princess of Wales, and the reason was clear. The world would never accept anyone else holding that title after Diana. The backlash would have been immense. Instead, Camilla was given the title of Duchess of Cornwall, a strategic move to avoid public outrage. Camilla's relationship with Charles had been a subject of scandal long before their marriage. The affair that had once been whispered about behind closed doors became public knowledge, and the world was not kind to her. She was seen as the woman who had caused Diana pain, and for many, that was unforgivable. When Charles and Diana's marriage fell apart, the public blamed Camilla. Even after Diana's tragic passing, the resentment remained. When Charles announced his plans to marry Camilla, the reaction was explosive. People were furious, and the monarchy faced a crisis. Marrying Camilla was one thing, but giving her the title of Princess of Wales would have been an insult to Diana's memory. The palace knew they had to tread carefully. Camilla was made Duchess of Cornwall, a title that carried significance but not the prestige of Princess of Wales. It was a compromise, a way to acknowledge her role in Charles's life without igniting further anger. But Queen Elizabeth had a long-term vision. She made it clear that Camilla would one day be accepted, and her decision was final. Camilla would take the title of Queen Consort when Charles became king. Queen Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee expressed her sincere wish that Camilla be known as Queen Consort. This decision was met with resistance, and even as years passed, Camilla remained a divisive figure. She was never truly embraced by the public the way Diana had been. The difference between their reputations was stark. Diana was loved, Camilla was tolerated. Unlike Charles, who had been given the title of Prince of Wales by Queen Elizabeth in 1958, Camilla's journey was far less celebrated. For decades, Charles was respected in his role, his title was prestigious, and his status was well established. But Camilla's position always carried controversy. Now, with Camilla stepping aside, the focus shifts entirely to Kate. The weight of the monarchy's future rests on her shoulders. People believe in her, trust her, and see her as a leader who can bring a new era of stability and admiration to the royal family. Kate's approach to the monarchy is a blend of tradition and modernity. She understands the deep-rooted history of the royal family but also recognizes the need for change. She has balanced royal duties with being a modern woman, a mother, and a public figure who connects with people in an authentic way. She is not distant or untouchable, she is relatable and warm, much like Diana once was. The public sees in Kate what they have longed for, a queen who can uphold the dignity of the crown while also being in touch with the realities of the world. This shift in power is monumental. It marks the end of an era of controversy and the beginning of a new chapter filled with hope. But what does this change truly mean for the monarchy? For years, the royal family has struggled with scandals, criticism, and moments that have tested their relevance in the modern world. Camilla's time as queen consort was never fully embraced. Some saw her presence as a reminder of the past, a past many wished had played out differently. Now, with Kate at the forefront, there is a renewed sense of optimism. The title of Princess of Wales has always carried great responsibility. Diana redefined what it meant, and now Kate is stepping into that same role, bringing her own approach and vision. She is not trying to replace Diana, no one ever could, but she is carrying forward the legacy of compassion, strength, and dedication to the people. The world watches as history unfolds. The monarchy is at a crossroads, and the decisions being made now will shape its future for decades to come. The past still lingers, Diana's memory, the controversy of Camilla, the struggles of previous generations. Diana, soon after her wedding, stepped into her royal duties with remarkable dedication. In October 1981, just months after becoming the Princess of Wales, she embarked on her first official visit, a 3-day tour of Wales. Crowds gathered in massive numbers, eager to catch a glimpse of the young princess dressed elegantly yet modestly. She charmed everyone with her warm smile and graceful presence. The people of Wales saw in her something fresh, something different from the usual stiff royal formality. She took the time to speak to ordinary people, shaking hands, listening to their concerns, and making them feel seen. It was clear from the start, Diana had a unique way of connecting with people. She wasn't just going through the motions, she genuinely cared. In 1983, Diana and Charles embarked on a major royal tour of Australia and New Zealand. They landed in Alice Springs, a remote town in central Australia. It was no ordinary visit. This time, their infant son William was in her arms. The decision to bring their baby along was unprecedented for royal protocol, but Diana insisted. She refused to leave him behind for weeks and wanted to balance her royal duties with her role as a mother. This move only deepened the public's admiration for her. Everywhere they went, thousands gathered to see the couple, but it was Diana who stole the spotlight. Her warmth, her effortless charm, and her ability to connect with ordinary people made her the undisputed star of the tour. More official visits followed over the next few years. Diana traveled extensively alongside Charles, representing the royal family in countries across the world. From Canada to Italy, from the United States to Japan, Each visit strengthened her reputation as the royal who truly cared about the people she met. She wasn't just waving from a balcony, she was engaging with people directly. After Prince Harry was born in 1984, Diana continued her royal duties, joining Charles on diplomatic trips. They visited the Middle East, where Diana impressed with her respectful approach to different cultures. In India, she was photographed alone in front of the Taj Mahal, a moment that later became one of the most symbolic images of her marriage, loneliness hidden behind a forced smile. As time went on, Diana began to take on more solo official visits. She traveled to Argentina, Pakistan, and Brazil, among many other countries, carrying out diplomatic duties in her own unique style. Without Charles by her side, she seemed more relaxed, more in control of her own narrative. Her visits weren't just about formal meetings, they were filled with meaningful interactions. In Africa, she met with AIDS patients, breaking stigmas by embracing them without hesitation. In Bosnia, she spoke to landmine victims, walking through dangerous areas to bring global attention to the issue. Charitable work became the defining aspect of her royal role. Diana wasn't content with just attending glamorous royal events. She wanted to make a difference. She championed causes that others ignored. She visited orphanages, met with the homeless, held hands with the dying, and fought to change the world's perception of those who were often shunned. One of her most impactful moments came when she walked through an active landmine field in Angola in 1997, wearing protective gear. She bravely stepped into a war-torn area to support efforts to ban landmines. The images of her walking calmly through the danger zone shook the world. The cause gained massive international attention, and soon after, progress was made toward banning landmines globally. Her involvement was life-changing for many. Diana also focused heavily on the HIV/AIDS crisis at a time when the disease was heavily stigmatized. In a groundbreaking moment, she publicly shook hands with an AIDS patient without gloves, proving that the illness couldn't be spread through touch. It was a simple gesture, but its impact was immense. It challenged misconceptions and humanized those suffering from the disease. People saw Diana as more than just a princess. She was a humanitarian, a woman using her platform for real change. Her separation from Charles in 1992 marked a turning point. Though still legally married, they began leading completely separate lives. Diana slowly detached herself from most royal duties. She stepped away from military roles and the expectations of being a traditional royal wife. But one thing remained unchanged: her devotion to charity. Even as she distanced herself from the monarchy, Princess Diana will always be remembered as a groundbreaking force for change. The late royal broke down barriers by embracing her soft side and showcasing her grace and affection. She continued her humanitarian work with the same passion. She visited orphanages, met with the homeless, and worked tirelessly to bring attention to overlooked causes. The world no longer saw her as just a princess, they saw her as a global force for good. Then came the interview that shook the monarchy. In 1995, Diana sat down with journalist Martin Bashir for a candid conversation. Her words were raw, honest, and revealing. She spoke about the struggles of her marriage, about feeling unsupported within the royal family. Then, in one of the most unforgettable moments, she delivered a sentence that would define her relationship with Charles forever. "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." With those words, she confirmed what many had suspected. Do you think Mrs. Parker Bowles was a factor in the breakdown of your marriage? Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage. The presence of Camilla Parker Bowles had loomed over her marriage from the very beginning. The public felt her pain, her heartbreak. They admired her bravery for speaking her truth, even when it went against the traditions of the royal family. Despite everything, Diana continued to carry herself with dignity. Even after her official divorce in 1996, she remained deeply involved in charity work. She visited war zones, continued her fight against AIDS stigma, and stood as a champion for the forgotten and the suffering. In her final months, she made several significant public appearances. She traveled to Washington, D.C. for an event on breast cancer awareness. She visited Bosnia as part of her landmine campaign. She continued working tirelessly as if she knew she had little time left. One of her most moving last moments was her meeting with Mother Teresa in June 1997. The two had met before, but this time, it felt different. Diana dressed simply, sat beside the frail but powerful nun, their hands clasped together. Mother Teresa was a woman who had devoted her life to serving the poor, and Diana deeply admired her. They spoke about charity, about faith, about the importance of kindness. It was a moment of reflection, a meeting of two women dedicated to helping those in need. Diana's legacy was already solidified by then. The world saw her not just as a former princess but as a humanitarian, a woman who had redefined what it meant to be royal. Her official duties had ended, but her impact was greater than ever. Kate Middleton followed in the footsteps of Princess Diana in many ways, but her journey into the royal family began with a fateful meeting at St. Andrews University in Scotland. It was there that she and Prince William crossed paths, two young students, unaware that their romance would one day captivate the world. Their relationship started as a close friendship built on shared interests, laughter, and a deep understanding of each other's lives. Unlike an ordinary love story, theirs unfolded under the relentless gaze of the media. Paparazzi followed them everywhere, scrutinizing every move, every glance, and every whispered conversation. Despite the pressure, Kate and William navigated their relationship with caution, making sure to protect their private moments. They strengthened their position as the future of the monarchy. Kate's fashion choices made headlines. Her composure in diplomatic settings was admired, and her ability to engage with people from all walks of life became her signature. Then came the next major milestone, the birth of their first child on July 22, 2013. Prince George was born, and the world celebrated. Standing outside St. Mary's Hospital, Kate and William introduced their newborn son to the world, echoing the moment when Diana had introduced baby William decades earlier. Kate, despite just giving birth, appeared radiant, dressed in a soft blue polka dot dress that reminded many of Diana's post-birth outfit. In 2015, their family grew again with the birth of Princess Charlotte. Once again, Kate and William presented their child to the world with beaming smiles. By this time, Kate had fully embraced royal motherhood, balancing her public role with her duties as a mother. Unlike past royal generations, she and William were hands-on parents, determined to give their children as normal a childhood as possible. Their third child, Prince Louis, was born in 2018, completing their family. Kensington Palace announced their third child would be known as His Royal Highness Prince Louis of Cambridge, full name Louis Arthur Charles. With 3 young children, Kate's role became even more significant. She was not just a royal figure, she was shaping the future of the monarchy. She took on more charitable projects, focusing on early childhood development, mental health awareness, and family support initiatives. Kate absorbed the traditions of the royal family while also modernizing her role. She observed Queen Elizabeth's approach to duty, learning the importance of consistency, grace, and service. At the same time, she brought a fresh perspective, showing that royalty could be approachable, warm, and deeply involved in social causes. She became a patron of numerous charities, advocating for children's welfare, mental health awareness, and the well-being of mothers. Her initiative on early childhood development focused on providing support for parents and children during the most formative years of life. She worked closely with mental health organizations, launching campaigns to break the stigma surrounding mental illness. Kate also honored Diana's legacy in subtle yet powerful ways. She visited the same charities that Diana once supported, carried on her humanitarian efforts, and ensured that her children knew about their grandmother's impact. She wore pieces from Diana's jewelry collection not just as fashion statements but as tributes to the woman who had changed the face of the royal family forever. Through the years, Kate continued to refine her role, proving that she was not just a supporting figure to William but a leader in her own right. She grew more confident in her speeches, more engaged in her projects, and more beloved by the public. Her travels with William took them to different corners of the world. In 2019, they visited Pakistan. Prince William and his wife Kate were on their first official visit to Pakistan, retracing Diana's steps and strengthening diplomatic ties. In 2022, they toured the Caribbean, celebrating the Queen's Platinum Jubilee while also addressing the changing political landscape of the Commonwealth. Kate's ability to balance tradition with modern expectations set her apart. She respected the rules of the monarchy but also showed that she was a woman of the people. She laughed with children, engaged with the elderly, and made every person she met feel important. Her journey from a university student to the Princess of Wales was nothing short of extraordinary. She was no longer just the young woman who had once walked through St. Andrews with Prince William. She had become a pillar of the monarchy. Through challenges, scrutiny, and immense public pressure, she remained steadfast, never letting the weight of her role dull her warmth. With William by her side, she continued to shape the future of the royal family, ensuring that the next generation would carry forward a legacy of service, kindness, and strength. But despite all her brilliance, how would Kate react to this new title? Robert Jobson's biography, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, the future Queen, offers a fascinating look into Kate Middleton's life and her journey into the royal family. One of the most intriguing revelations is how Kate, out of deep respect for her late mother-in-law, initially refused to take the title of Princess of Wales after her marriage. She understood the weight of the title, knowing it had belonged to Diana, a woman adored by millions. Diana's tragic death in a car accident at just 36 years old left a lasting scar on the royal family. We have reports from Paris. The Diana, Princess of Wales, has been pulling him into a gentle embrace. Her touch was soft but steady, the warmth of her arms enveloping him like a safe haven. She felt the slight tremor in his small body as he melted into her, his fragile frame shaking with a grief too big for his tiny body to hold. She held him tighter, her hands moving to gently pat his back, offering him a sense of stability, a reminder that it was okay to feel this way, that it was okay to let go. As she felt the warmth of his tears on her skin, Kate's heart broke. She could feel his sadness deep, raw, and inexplicable. The tears weren't just the result of a fleeting moment. They were a reflection of something deeper, something Kate could sense but couldn't fully understand. She whispered softly into his ear, her voice barely audible above the noise of the surrounding crowd. "It's okay," she murmured, her words carrying the weight of an unspoken promise. "You're not alone." The little boy's sobs came in tiny choked bursts, his tiny body trembling as the grief inside him poured out. Kate's heart thudded painfully in her chest. She gently rocked him back and forth, feeling the weight of his sorrow in the slow, rhythmic movements. She didn't try to hurry him and didn't push him to stop crying. She simply stayed there, holding him close, letting him feel the comfort of her presence and the softness of her touch. His cries were quiet, but there was an intensity in them that told Kate this wasn't just a child's sadness. It was something deeper, something that had been building inside him for a long time. After a few moments, the young boy pulled back slightly, his small hands pressing against her shoulders as he looked up at her. His eyes were red and swollen from the tears, but the sadness that filled them was even more telling. There was a loneliness in them that struck Kate to her core. His tiny face was flushed with emotion, his expression filled with grief, and for a moment, Kate could see his vulnerability. He was so lost in his own sadness, in a world that felt too big and overwhelming for him. His tears had stopped, but his pain remained raw and open in the soft vulnerability of his young face. Kate gently cupped his tear-streaked face in her hands, brushing her thumbs across his wet cheeks to remove the last of his tears. She could feel his tiny hands still clinging to her, holding on to her as if she were the only thing keeping him from falling apart. Her heart swelled with both love and sadness, and she bent closer to him. Her voice was soothing and tender. "You're not alone," she whispered again, her words flowing like a quiet promise. "You don't have to carry this on your own." The boy's grip tightened around her hand, his little fingers curling into her palm. He didn't say anything, but his silence spoke volumes. There was a comfort in his touch, in the way he held her hand so tightly as though he were afraid to let go. Kate understood. She understood the quiet longing in his eyes, the silent plea for someone to be there, to listen, to care. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. The crowd had gone back to their own conversations, but to Kate, the world had narrowed down to just her and this little boy. His head resting against her shoulder, the warmth of his small body pressed against hers, and Kate continued to stroke his back, whispering softly in his ear, her voice the only constant in the midst of everything else. Slowly, the boy's body relaxed. His sobs had stopped, and the tremble in his small frame began to ease. He was exhausted, his little face still wet from the tears, but there was a softness in his features now, a stillness that hadn't been there before. As he leaned into her, his breath evened out, and Kate felt his tiny body go limp with the weight of his emotions being released. Kate smiled softly, her heart filling with a quiet sense of peace. She continued to hold him, her arms never once leaving the safety of his fragile form. As his head rested against her shoulder, Kate whispered, "It's okay now, little one. You can rest." For the first time that evening, Kate could feel his heart slowing, his tiny sobs fading into the quiet of the moment. As Kate held the little boy gently in her arms, the little boy could feel the warmth of her embrace, like a soft blanket wrapping around him. It was different from anything he had known, kindness, tenderness, that seemed to reach deep into his heart, soothing the ache that had been there for so long. His tiny body, still trembling with the weight of his emotions, slowly relaxed against her. There was a comfort in her presence, something safe and steady, like the calm after a storm. His tears had stopped, but her touch continued to work its quiet magic, giving him a sense of peace that he had never felt before. For the first time, the loneliness that had been etched on his face softened, and though his eyes were still red, there was a flicker of hope that hadn't been there when he first stood before her. The crowd, which had once been buzzing with excitement and noise, had fallen into a hushed silence. Every eye in the room was on Kate and the boy, their moment of quiet connection becoming the centerpiece of the event. People watched, some with hands over their mouths, others with tears in their eyes, as they saw the warmth of Kate's kindness unfold. She wasn't just the Princess of Wales in that moment. She was a mother, a woman offering love and comfort to a child who needed it more than anyone could have imagined. The quiet room seemed to breathe with them as they stood there, a small world within a world. The photographers, who had been eagerly snapping shots just moments before, now found themselves captivated by the intimate scene before them, as though they had forgotten to capture the deeper beauty of the moment. For all their cameras and lenses, they were too caught in the raw emotion to focus on the task at hand. As Kate gently wiped away the last tear from the little boy's cheek, her hand lingering on his small face, she could feel him starting to calm, the heaviness lifting little by little. His tiny fingers, still clutching her hand, squeezed tighter. It was as though he didn't want to let go, not of her and not of this feeling of safety that she had given him. It was a grip that spoke volumes, a silent promise that he wasn't ready to face the world alone anymore. A charity volunteer who had been watching from the side walked quietly over to Kate, her face filled with compassion. She leaned in and softly spoke, her voice barely audible over the murmurs of the crowd. "Your Highness," she said, "this little boy, he's lost both of his parents. He's been through so much." Kate looked up at the volunteer, her expression softening with understanding. She nodded, her heart aching for the boy in her arms. "I know his pain," she replied quietly, her voice filled with a gentle sadness. There was no need for more words, as if in that moment she and the child shared a bond that went deeper than anyone could comprehend. The volunteer, with a look of awe and admiration in her eyes, whispered, "You're so brave." Her voice was thick with emotion, but Kate simply smiled warmly in response, her attention still focused entirely on the little boy, who was now resting his head against her shoulder, his breath slow and steady. In that quiet corner of the room, the event had turned into something more than just a public appearance. It had become a moment of healing. Kate wasn't just performing royal duties, she was offering something priceless, her time, her comfort, and her love. In a world that often felt too big and too fast for someone like this boy, she had made it small and safe again. As the room watched, they saw not just the Princess of Wales, but a human being showing tenderness and strength in equal measure. They saw a mother's embrace, the kind of love that transcends titles and expectations. And in that moment, the air seemed to hold its breath, as if the world itself was bearing witness to the quiet power of empathy and care. The little boy, for the first time in what seemed like forever, felt peace. The quiet connection between him and Kate had given him a space to simply be, to let his heart catch up with his emotions. His shoulders, once tense with grief, slowly relaxed. The tightness in his chest began to loosen, and though his heart was still healing, he no longer felt alone. The warmth of Kate's touch, the strength of her presence, gave him a glimmer of a brighter future, one where love and kindness could heal even the deepest wounds. And as they stood there together, the boy firmly holding her hand, the crowd continued to watch, their hearts touched by the beauty of the moment. It was a moment of raw humanity, a fleeting yet unforgettable display of tenderness that would be remembered long after the event was over. But even in the midst of such a powerful scene, the photographers missed the most important shot. Lost in the quiet beauty of it all, they failed to capture the essence of the moment. The moment when Kate Middleton, with nothing more than a soft touch and a compassionate heart, gave a grieving child a piece of hope. Kate kneeled down in front of James, her eyes soft and filled with understanding. She could see the sadness that lingered in his young eyes, the weight of loss pressing down on him in ways he couldn't yet fully understand. But as she looked at him, she saw strength he might not yet recognize in himself. Gently, she took his small hand in hers and whispered, "You are so strong and you are so brave. I know it doesn't always feel like it, but you are." Her voice was steady, filled with warmth, and her words were not just comforting but motivating. She wanted him to believe it, to hold on to the truth that there was power in his heart, even in the quietest moments. The people around them watched at a respectful distance, their eyes filled with admiration and respect for the quiet, powerful exchange. There was something beautiful in the way Kate was interacting with the child, something that transcended the formality of the event and spoke to the core of humanity. A charity volunteer, who had been observing the scene, came closer and spoke softly to Kate. "Her Royal Highness," she began, her voice thick with emotion. "This boy, his name is James. He lost both of his parents, and he doesn't speak much, but today you've given him something no one else could. You've given him hope to live confidently." Kate nodded, her heart swelling with emotion. She squeezed James's hand, offering him a silent promise that he wasn't alone, and gently stood up, guiding him to walk with her. As she moved, the crowd parted quietly, giving them space. The moment felt sacred, as if the world had paused to honor the quiet bond between the princess and the boy. James, with his hand firmly in Kate's, began to feel the care and love she was offering him. There was no rush, no pressure, just the steady, warm presence of someone who cared deeply for him. Kate felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility as a mother and as a person. She felt a deep love for all children, but there was something uniquely special about James. In his eyes, she saw the quiet strength she had just spoken about, the same strength she was determined to help him realize. That moment, small as it seemed, held immense power. For James, it would never be forgotten. The touch of a hand, the kind words, the time given to simply be present. These small gestures of kindness had made a world of difference in his life. And as he walked beside Kate, he knew that even in the hardest times, there would always be people who cared. It was a lesson that would stay with him forever. If you want to know more about untold royal stories, then do comment below.